I'm Tony Craddock. I'm the Director General of the Payments Association and its founder. We have today a very special guest to share some insights with you, and I'll introduce her in a moment. But beforehand, just a couple of really exciting announcements. First of all, as you're aware, we have a regular rhythm of networking events along with our other hundreds of gatherings each year. We have the first Tuesday of every month, we have typically a networking event. Now, the first Tuesday in May is a PA at the city, and it's in the city. It does what it says on the tin, and in May, first Tuesday of May, as normal. The first Tuesday in June, we're actually announcing the finalists for the Pay 360 Awards, and we decided our ordinary forum wasn't big enough. So we've partnered up with Money 2020 in Amsterdam, and on the evening of the first Tuesday, selected from over 300 nominations this year, we will be announcing the finalists of the Pay 360 Awards. Really exciting night. For those who are attending the conference, please be sure to join us. Members can get a discount on their tickets as well. And blimey, it should be a hell of an event. Then really progressively, and I think excitedly, we're doing the next week, the next Tuesday, for the first time for a couple of years, we're doing a networking event, a PA at Manchester. And guess where it's going to be? Yep, you got it. It's going to be in Manchester, hosted by our friends at KPMG, the leader members of the Payment Association. They're kindly hosting the event. We're holding our advisory board that afternoon up there. So I hope either to see you in Amsterdam or in Manchester. Or maybe on the Remo floor in just a few minutes on one of the topic tables, which will be great. Cool. Let's welcome our VIP guest. She traditional history in risk management, regulation and delivering change. She's lived in Europe and Australia. She set up the first ever payment supervision department at the FCA. She also delivered the supervision strategy for payments and was the accountable executive for the delivery of PSD2. My word, quite a track record. She then went to the Pay UK, and she's now back doing what I think is some really progressive and important work back at the FCA. So to tell us all about it, please welcome the head of department of early and high growth oversight of the FCA, Maha el Dimachki. Hi, Maha. Good to have you here.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Tony. And I always appreciate the introductions and humbled by what you say, but thank you.
Good to have you here. So first of all, why don't we kick off by you sharing with the audience a little bit about your role and the important job you're trying to do at the FCA?
Well, I think it all started, you would have all been familiar with the Khalifa review into UK FinTech and some of the recommendations that came out of that. And one of the recommendations was a line in into the regulation chapter of that report that said the FCA to set up a scale box. And frankly, I was brought in to set up the scale box, but no one could tell me precisely what the scale box actually means. So we had to do a lot of engagement to actually understand, what is needed as firms are starting up and scaling up, and that kind of extra supervisory support, that understanding of how to go from, once you've got your authorization, how to go from putting that into practice and really embedding that into your organization at a very, very early stage is what was required, because it was always described as a cliff edge. When you get your authorization and you go into operate in the big bad world, and you're on your own, and there would be kind of certain things around regulation that you'd like to sort of embed, but you didn't always have access to the right resources or the right people at the regulator. Mm-hmm. So we set out to really establish a framework by which we work with firms in those stages. And how can we kind of make sure that our overarching ambition is to really kind of raise standards from a very early stage, embed the concept of risk management and regulation at an early stage in the business, in a proportionate way in the business, and see where it takes us. And for us also to kind of look at what are the types of engagement that work between the regulator and firms that are newly authorized, that are on their kind of real path to high growth. How can we make that efficient? What would be the firm experience? And how can we really use technology, AI, automation, digital tools to do that? Mm-hmm. So we're on a journey. We started with, would have been 18 months ago, a line on a report to a pilot, and we published some of the findings of the pilot. So now we've grown to 300 firms, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to go.
Got to say, it's a brilliant example of how ahead our regulatory team is. I mean, is there anybody else doing that around the world or anything in this way?
At the moment, my understanding is there isn't, and I'm hoping to keep it that way, because I'd like to also be a bit more creative with what we could do there. So let's see. I mean, our sandbox was replicated around the world, and this might be another one. So we'll see.
So what do they say? Success has many fathers. Or mothers even. Well, can you say that? Can you say that phrase anymore? I'm not sure whether you can. Anyway,
you redeemed yourself very quickly, so thank you.
What's interesting to me is, I mentioned at the very beginning that this is the people in the audience are entrepreneurial by nature. They're innovative, and particularly the people who attend a virtual networking event. They're the people whose minds are probably not immediately thinking about risk management and compliance, and more than being maybe necessary evil. So how do you shift that mindset so that the leaders of the firms that are in our membership and across the industry are thinking risk management first?
I mean, that's a great question. I think I really love interacting with the sector because of the creativity, the entrepreneurial kind of nature of all the founders and those working in this business, and the impact that it will have on, solutions for consumers, on job growth, on all of the wonderful things that fintech and innovation and entrepreneurship bring. My view is that risk management, if you see it as something that is kind of holding you back and weighing you down, then perhaps you're looking at it from the wrong angle. Risk management can be your friend if you really understand where the risks within your business lie, and you've got them in your line of sight. You're actually supporting your business to grow sustainably. That is a much better position to be in than actually not knowing where your risks are coming from and having to deal with it, sometimes to the detriment of the business. And when you're starting out, there's quite a lot of things that hit you. I mean, a lot of founders know that it's not an easy job to start up a business. So using risk management as something that actually helps you in your decision making and strategy setting could be a real benefit. And I'm trying to kind of shift the focus for that. You can be entrepreneurial, jeans wearing, all of the t-shirts and the bean bags and all those things. We can also care about risk management.
Can I wear my pajamas?
You can wear your pajamas and still care about risk management.
Happy days. That's a big relief. You see, I think that does make a whole heap of sense. It's almost as if you're the radar ahead of the ship to stop people encountering the rocks that they can't currently see. It's about identifying the things around which they have to navigate in order to ensure that when they reach them, they're successful.
That's right. And I mean, we label it as risk management, but if you really think about it, it's inherent in what we do and how we behave as human beings. You don't cross the road without looking left or right. That is, so it's really kind of embedding that culture of, looking out for what potentially could derail you and hold you back. It has to be your friend.
It's kind of iceberg avoidance, isn't it, really? It's kind of iceberg avoidance. Well, why don't we rename risk management iceberg avoidance? See whether that goes down. If we flip it around the other way, how do we actually go about creating more of an entrepreneurial mindset within the people who are in risk management as well, so that they themselves are presenting their solutions as being solutions and iceberg avoidance activities?
Yeah, I'm hoping that some of the examples that we show as a regulator is really thinking about that entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, we're really interested in what's happening in the market around the new kind of innovations, the growth of kind of this fintech and the crypto world and what's happening there, and really trying to understand with some of our tech sprints what that actually means. Looking at AI and what that means, and how can we kind of support the safe growth of some of these innovations and the benefit that they could bring. Again, for us, while keeping in mind that kind of risk management kind of lens, and being the advocate for trying to find the balance between that entrepreneurial mindset and innovations that we find, as well as risk management. But even internally, what I'm doing as far as early and high growth oversight, and looking at kind of how can we use data analysis and AI to actually help us with being a better supervisor. We want to be a data-led regulator. We say that time and time again. We're embarking on transformation, and we're really challenging ourselves on, how we do that in a way that's keeping up with the changes in the business and understanding that sort of entrepreneurial mindset. When we think about it, when we think about innovation, entrepreneurial mindset, I think about it as being creative, as finding the environment for safe testing of new ideas, for challenging each other on how can we do things differently, but doing it in a way that's not going to be detrimental to kind of the objectives of our business. And in this case, it's kind of the regulator, consumer protection, market integrity, and so on.
Very cool.
Every business can find that space to do it in kind of in a safe way, and in a way that creates the mindset of continuous improvement, entrepreneurship, creativity, but still, really holding the objectives of the organization at the heart of what you do.
Yeah,
compromising that.
I think that's going to be a welcome breath of fresh air. Honestly, I think that's a very enlightened approach and a very progressive one. Oh, out of interest, so something that I've looked at, we talked about earlier that I didn't quite understand, which was sludge and nudge. What does sludge and nudge mean, and how does that fit into all of this?
So you'll see these feature in our new consumer duty. If you haven't heard about the new consumer duty,
I think everybody would have done. I can guarantee it.
So sludge and nudge is really kind of looking at some of the practices that may be detrimental to the customer experience. So a really simple example of sludge is if or nudge and sludge working to the detriment of the consumer experience is that if you've got a risky type of product and you're nudging the consumer to buy, and maybe you should kind of create a bit of friction before that happens, that's kind of harmful nudge. And then it comes to the point where the consumer wants to potentially cancel their services, and you introduce sludge, which is a bit more friction in the process. That's harmful sludge. They can also work in opposite. They could be beneficial sludge and beneficial nudge. So again, if you are looking at a risky product, but you're putting in the right kind of friction just for people to really stop and think about whether this is the right thing for them, that's actually beneficial sludge. So it's really looking at the outcomes, because the consumer duty is about outcomes, looking at what the outcome is and working backwards. If the decisions that you are making are taking you in directions where there might be a detriment to consumers in terms of product, understanding of the product, the service levels, or or fair value, then you really need to rethink that. It's a way of life. It becomes a way of life, actually.
You have a brilliant and compelling way of explaining it. So thank you for that. I'd like you to explain in the last question for you in just the last minute or so, in a compelling and clear way, is your personal interest in the World Autism Acceptance Week last week, and what your thoughts are for the future, and why that's relevant.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that we moved from autism awareness to autism acceptance, and I might kind of broaden that to neurodiversity generally. I think for the neurodiverse amongst us, our world was built for the 80%, for the neurotypical, if you like, and they come into work, they tackle the world day in, day out, and they have to bend themselves so much to do that. Having an autistic son, I see that day in, day out. And so what I'm advocating is that businesses, as kind of organizations, we bend a little for them. We change for them, because the benefit that brings into your organization in terms of diversity of thought, the way they think, if you create the right opportunity and environment for them to thrive, it could be really helpful to your business, but it could also be helpful to the economy, to productivity. Only 22% of autistic people are in employment. That is the lowest out of any group that identify as disabled. I mean, I don't like to use the word disabled, because I don't think, I think people have diverse abilities rather than being, disabled, and many neurodiverse, don't see themselves as disabled. So recognizing that actually there is so much potential there that could benefit the business, and maybe we can kind of adjust and change to accommodate that. Let's break down the stigma, let's break down the judgment, and let's kind of really welcome everybody in, and create those diverse environments. It has to be better for everybody.
Maha, thank you so much. It's not payments, but it's life. And you know what? even just us being able to air it and talk about it and socialize it. We're going to be incorporating efforts on this sort of thing with our project ESG, which launched a couple of weeks ago at Pay 360. So thank you for filling up us with some great ideas and shifting our thinking. Thank you very much indeed from everybody on behalf of the community. Maha el Dimachki from FCA.